Hydrogen or gasoline? Which one's safer for your car? Hello engineering enthusiasts! Today we're going to talk about a topic that generates a lot of discussion and even a bit of fear when it comes to the future of automobiles and new energy sources. With the search for alternatives to fossil fuels, hydrogen fuel cell cars are becoming more and more of a reality. However, just mentioning the word hydrogen is enough for many people to immediately think of catastrophic explosions, or on the other hand, those makeshift hydrogen tanks for cars that promise too much. Well, we deal with gasoline every day. We sit on top of a tank full of it, and we think that's the most normal and safest thing in the world. But after all, when we talk about cars, what really defines whether a fuel is safe or dangerous? The safety of any fuel isn't just about whether it catches fire or not. After all, the purpose of fuel is precisely to burn to release energy. True safety is defined by the physical and chemical properties of this material. In other words, how it behaves when it escapes from the tank, how it reacts when it comes into contact with air, and what temperature is needed for it to ignite. And most importantly, what happens to the flames if a fire actually starts? To understand which one is safer, we need to set aside our habits a bit and analyze the science behind each of these elements in the event of an accident or leak. But how does our old and familiar gasoline behave in an accident? Well, gasoline is a liquid at room temperature, and that dictates all of its behavior. If there's a rupture in the tank or the fuel line during a crash, gasoline will leak and follow gravity, running under the car and forming a puddle on the ground. The big problem is that gasoline evaporates quickly, and these vapors are heavier than air. This means they don't dissipate throughout the environment, but instead accumulate right there, close to the ground, spreading around the vehicle. If any spark, whether from a damaged electrical system or from metal friction with the asphalt, comes into contact with this mixture of vapor and oxygen around the vehicle, the fire starts. And since the liquid fuel remains there in the puddle, feeding the fire, the flames engulf the entire car, generating extreme heat that melts plastics, glass and metals, putting the passengers' lives at imminent risk, since the fire is concentrated exactly where the people are. But what about hydrogen? Isn't it much more explosive and dangerous than gasoline? This is where physics shows us a completely different perspective. Hydrogen is the lightest element in the entire universe, being about 14 times lighter than the air we breathe. If there is a leak in a hydrogen car tank, it won't form a puddle on the ground and the gas won't accumulate around the vehicle. On the contrary, hydrogen escapes and rises into the atmosphere at an impressive speed of almost 20 meters per second. It dissipates so quickly that it's very difficult for it to reach the necessary concentration near the car to cause a major explosion. To illustrate this, in 2001, the researcher Dr. Michael Swain from the University of Miami conducted a famous experiment. He caused a leak followed by ignition in two cars, one powered by gasoline and the other powered by hydrogen. In the hydrogen-powered car, the gas leaked and caught fire, but the flame rose like a vertical blowtorch away from the cabin. In a few minutes, the fire went out and the temperature inside the car barely changed, keeping the virtual passengers safe. In the gasoline-powered car, the leak formed a puddle, the fire engulfed the entire vehicle, and the car was completely destroyed. But if hydrogen is a gas, how is it stored in the car without the tank exploding from the pressure? One of the biggest concerns in automotive engineering, and the solution they found is fascinating. For the car to have good range, the hydrogen needs to be highly compressed, reaching pressures of 700 bar. Just so you have an idea, your car's tire usually has about 2 to 2.4 bar of pressure. Storing something at 700 bar requires a tank that is a true masterpiece of engineering.
They're not made of ordinary metal, but rather built in multiple layers.
The inner layer is made of high-density polymer that prevents the tiny hydrogen molecules from escaping.
On top of that, the tank is wrapped with kilometers of carbon fiber,
the same material used in Formula One cars and spacecraft, which provides incredible structural strength against impacts. And on the outside, there's still a layer of fiberglass to protect against abrasion and cuts. These tanks are tested under extreme conditions. They are dropped from great heights, loaded, exposed to fire, and even shot at with high-caliber rifle rounds. Even when pierced by a bullet, they don't explode. They just release the gas continuously. And it's fascinating to see how engineering can take an extremely complex problem and turn it into a safe and efficient solution, isn't it? Now, do you know where else we need that same safety and efficiency?
But what about the energy needed to start a fire?
Which of the two ignites more easily? That's a question with a two-part answer. On one hand, hydrogen needs much less energy to ignite from a spark. A simple static electricity discharge, like the kind of shock you get from a doorknob, is already enough to ignite hydrogen if it's mixed with oxygen in the right proportion. Gasoline needs a slightly stronger spark. However, when we look at the auto-ignition temperature, which is the temperature at which the fuel catches fire on its own when it touches a hot surface, the situation changes. Gasoline auto-ignites at a temperature between 250 and 280 degrees Celsius. That is, if gasoline leaks and touches the hot exhaust of the engine, it can catch fire instantly. Hydrogen, on the other hand, has a much higher auto-ignition temperature, above 500 degrees Celsius. Therefore, simple contact of hydrogen with the hot parts of the car engine is not enough to start a fire. Engineers have created passive safety systems to deal with the worst-case scenario. If the hydrogen car is involved in an external fire, caused by another vehicle, for example, the extreme heat could increase the pressure inside the carbon fiber tank to the breaking point. To prevent this, the tanks are equipped with a device called TPRD, or Thermal Pressure Relief Device, which is a pressure relief valve activated by heat. If the temperature around the tank reaches a critical level, this valve melts and opens on purpose, releasing all the hydrogen in a controlled way and directing it upwards and away from the car. This creates a tall flame, but it prevents the tank from rupturing or exploding, protecting the structure of the vehicle and the passengers. So, weighing everything up, which one is actually safer for your car? The truth is that no fuel is 100% safe. We're talking about substances that store a massive amount of energy to be able to move tons of metal at high speeds. Gasoline has a history of over a century of use, and we've learned to deal with its risks. But its physical properties of forming puddles and heavy vapors make it extremely dangerous when it leaks. Hydrogen, on the other hand, carries the stigma of being a bomb. But physics works in favor of safety, as its natural tendency is to quickly escape into the open air. And the aerospace technology used in the construction of its tanks and valves means that in many scenarios involving serious accidents, they present a lower risk of trapping passengers in a prolonged fire than gasoline does. If you've made it this far and enjoyed the video, take the opportunity to subscribe if you haven't already, leave a like and turn on notifications. And if you find our content interesting, consider becoming a member to help us keep producing content here on the platform and to be mentioned in our videos. And if you've made it this far, I invite you to take a look at the courses we recommend. So point your phone at the QR code here on the screen or click the link in the description for our courses. There you will find courses on Excel, 3D modeling, AutoCAD, public speaking, and many others. These are courses selected by us here on the channel, and we can vouch for their quality. Now I want to know your opinion. After understanding how physics and engineering work to ensure the safety of these fuels, would you feel safer driving a car with a gasoline tank under the seat or a car with a high-pressure hydrogen cylinder? Leave your answer in the comments because I want to know. Here on the side, there are 2 interesting videos that you need to watch to expand your knowledge and satisfy your curiosity. And if you want to support us, just leave a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and consider becoming a channel member. That's it, engineering enthusiasts. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.